Hello, friend. Nice to see you. The angels wanted me to come and talk to you today. Um, I've been sick off and on for the last month. My husband goes to work and gets sick and brings it home to me, and in about a week he's better, and then I'm getting sick. So then he is well for a week, and he goes back to work, and he gets sick again, and then he brings it back to me, who's just getting over it, and I get sick again, and so we've been playing the flu tag this whole last month. So I've been a little slow on my videos, but the angels wanted me to talk about the lies we live and living our true authentic selves. I have a friend who a lot of people couldn't figure out for years and years and years and years. They thought this man was touched in the head. That he, you know, wasn't like everybody else and there had to be something wrong with him. There was absolutely nothing. There is. He's still alive. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this man. In fact, he's doing everything right. Um, he is a hunter, trapper, fisherman, and he has been for many, many years. I think I could easily say 40 years he has done this, and he made it his life. He couldn't be just a hunter, trapper, fisherman, so he had to find a way to get, money to survive, food, roof over his head. But because he's a hunter, trapper, fisherman, he was drawn to rod and gun clubs, and many, many years ago, he became the caretaker of a rod and gun club, which gave him free rent, and he was able to live there on the property for free. He hunted a lot of his own food, and he found ways to live very frugally. But he also, worked as a painter here and there doing odd jobs. Very gifted and talented painter. He has no problems getting jobs for painting apartments and houses and businesses, and he is very good at what he does, but he is able to cut his own hours and determine how much money he really wants or needs to make in order to support himself. And a lot of people, have looked down on him for it and been rude and nasty to him for it. And I think the biggest reason is because so many of these people have been stuck in jobs that they hate. They have been living the lie of, you have to go to school, you have to do really good in school, you have to go to college, you have to get a really good job, you have to have lots of money coming in, you have to buy a fancy house, and you have to have a fancy car, and you have to get a really hot woman or man as your spouse. You have to have 2.3 children or 1.3 or whatever it is nowadays. And, you know, they, we have been programmed that we need to work for the man, that we have to have children, we have to get married, we have to buy a home, we have to buy cars, we have to travel and spend a lot of money on going to new and different destinations. Well, this man was able to travel for free with other people while he helped them with their hunting, trapping, and fishing, this man was able to have free rent by living in a rather nice mobile home on the property of the Rod and Gun Club. He was able to have pretty much whatever food he wanted to have, even some exotic things, because he went hunting for them and he would forage for them and he would find them. And, he lives, he still lives very well. And, here, let's say Bob went to school and pushed himself hard to get A's, and he was the valedictorian of his high school class. And he went on to college to get a MBA, and he, spent a lot of money. And when he got out, he tried to get into business, and he did, but it wasn't the business he wanted to get into. It wasn't the check he really wanted to receive. It wasn't the company he really wanted to work for. So he pushed and he pushed and he pushed. And he worked hard every day, trying to become what he thought he should be. And he never could achieve those goals because there was always somebody else beating him to the job that he really thought that he should have. And he was constantly under stress, constantly, frustrated and angry. And he, eventually got married because he was getting older and he had to get married if he was going to have a family. So he got married, and after a couple of years, they started having children, and he and his wife started having marital problems because he's angry, he's unhappy, he's miserable in his life, not because of what his wife and children have done, but because he doesn't have the perfect life that he pictured for himself. His expectations aren't being met, and he's taking it out on his wife and his children, and he's angry with the world because he feels like he's not getting a fair shake. He feels like the world is against him because he's not getting what it was that he really truly wanted to have. And all of a sudden, Bob has a nervous breakdown, and he attacks his wife and beats her and puts her in the hospital. He winds up in jail, and because he hurt her so badly, he winds up in prison. And the children wind up having to go live with Grandma and Grandpa because they don't have their mommy and daddy. Now, when Bob started out, that wasn't his dream. He never wanted to go to jail or to prison. He never wanted to have children just to leave them live with his in-laws. He never wanted to hurt his wife. But these things happen because we're not being authentic. More and more nowadays, the stress of life is horrid. Even for those people who have accepted their jobs in life, who have accepted, they're happy with their families and they're happy with where they live. And I wouldn't say they're really happy, but they've accepted it and they're okay with it. And they find gratitude and acceptance and happiness where they're at. But Nowadays, we have at least 3 big wars going on in the world. We have constant things coming at us through the media about our United States government not doing so well. People lying or being accused of lying and being accused of some major criminal activities. And yeah, I know my phone is ringing. I'm just going to let it go. Also, because of the cost of living, people can't afford to pay their rent. They have to decide, are we going to pay our rent or are we going to buy food for our family? Are we going to pay our vehicles off or are we going to buy food for our family? Are we going to be able to purchase the things that our kids need for school, or are we going to purchase the clothes that we need for work? And it's getting harder and harder for the middle class and the lower class people to make ends meet. There are becoming more and more people living on the street. And so many people living on the street are, of course they're homeless, but they're mentally ill or they have drug problems. And most of those people used to be Bob. They were Bob doing their darndest to live up to the expectations that he had put upon him and that he owned for himself. And he decided, this is what I need to do. This is what I want to do. And if I don't accomplish it, I'm a failure. Well, after so many years of being what he thinks is a failure, he, winds up in jail, winds up in prison. He gets out of prison, but he can't get a job. He can't rent an apartment. He can't, do much of anything. So he winds up trying to live off someone else. But he's still Angry Bob. He's still, not living his true life. And because of that, he could wind up back in jail or back in prison. He could wind up on the street doing drugs to numb his pain. And a lot of people don't realize that drugs and alcohol aren't the only way that people numb pain. They eat, they overeat, they watch television, they listen to hours and hours and hours of music trying to numb their pain. They, have sex addictions. They have gambling addictions. There's so many addictions out there and ways that people try to numb their pain rather than looking within and talking to your soul. The angels want us to know that we need to talk to our souls. We need to talk to our higher selves. We need to live authentically. As children, we're born here authentic. And it's only the things that we're programmed to do that cause and create these lies, these stories and what we believe are truths, but they're not. God wants us to live our truths. This man I talked about, who people think are crazy because he lived his truth. He found a way to be the person who he truly is deep down inside. And he's always been authentic and real to himself. He still has to numb. He has addictions because people have been cruel and mean to him. And people don't understand him, and he doesn't really fit in with other people. Sadly, that leaves him very alone and unhappy at times. So, it's all of these lies that are causing people to be unhappy. They're even causing this man who's living authentically to be unhappy because of other people's ideas, thoughts, and expectations upon him. And him feeling, like he's totally alone because he doesn't fit in with the crowd. There are a lot of people in the last 30 years, actually I'd say 60 years, who have been finding their true callings, who have, one way or another, listened to their authentic inner voice. And one person who really did a fantastic job of that is, what was her name? Dolores Cannon. Okay. She died a few years ago, but back in the 60s, she started hypnotizing people to help them with their fears and, to help them with eating disorders or flying fears or different stresses. And through her hypnotherapy sessions with these people, she wasn't afraid to go deep. She wasn't afraid to push the envelope and go beyond what other people were willing to do. And because of this, she was able to create what she called quantum healing hypnosis therapy or technique. And with this, she was able to help people to heal. I mean, some healed cancer, some healed emphysema. They healed all kinds of terrible things that these people hadn't been able to get over or get through on their own. And they also were able to help people to become authentic to themselves. And she gathered a lot of information from these sessions of hers. She was able to communicate directly with Jesus, with the Essenes, with Nostradamus, and many, many, many other famous people throughout history and time who were able to give her glimpses into reality and how the world and universe truly work. She was a pioneer. But the reason she believed all of this information that she was receiving is because this information didn't just come from one patient. It came from thousands of patients, one after another, after another, after another, telling the same information. And like Nostradamus, he not only gave information through one person, but he would also come and give information through another person. And he would just go, start where he had left off and continue. So she was able to write a book on Nostradamus. She was able to write a book on Jesus and the Essenes, and books called The Convoluted Universe. People thought she was crazy too. Especially back in the 1960s. They really thought she was crazy. And they tried to shut her down and say that what she was doing was the devil's work, and kind of like a witch hunt, that what she was doing was wrong. And she had to stick up for herself and prove to people over and over again that that isn't what she was doing. That isn't what was going on. So often when people try to be authentic, they have so many other people trying to take that away from them. And it's really sad. Now, in 2023, thank goodness, we can look around and see many, many, many people being quantum healing hypnosis therapists. I, for one, have taken quantum healing hypnosis therapy classes, so I can actually do it myself. I've done hypnosis for many people for a very, very, very long time, many years. And so to be able to do that kind of therapy was, quite wonderful. But, nowadays there are people who work as psychics and mediums. I mean, look at the Long Island medium, or that young man, I'm not sure where he's from, but he goes around speaking to people, and he has a show on television about, he mainly works with famous people, and that's all they really show on this show are the famous people that he works with, and they help him to find famous people to work with. But he has a beautiful gift, and thank goodness he's working with it. There are others who come to mind who do the same type of work, and they're being honest and true to themselves. There are people who work with MUFON, and people who work with aliens, and of course they're talked down about. There are people who talk that they were part of the secret space mission, and that they had to do 20 years and back, which means that they were taken from their young life. A lot of these people between the ages of 6 and 12, they were taken from their life. They were put in a bed, and somehow with some magic technology, or advanced technology, they were age progressed and became, someone 18 or 20, and they were signed on a contract that they had to become, whatever it was that they needed in these space programs. Now, granted, not everyone is taken for this, because they want people who have telekinetic abilities, or mind-reading abilities, empathic abilities, and they don't just want the average Joe off the street. They want someone who has very strong abilities. And we're finding that the majority of these people were found in their schools. And they give them tests to determine if they have these abilities or not. And if they do, then they're taken for this secret space program. Now, when people come back, they've had traumatic things happen to them. Their memories are erased, and they're not supposed to remember anything. And when they begin remembering things, of course, they're trying to tell their truth and their story, and no one wants to believe them. People call them liars and fakes, and people seem to be afraid of them. Stop and think, who is this helping? Who is this helping by covering up the secret space program? Who is this helping by not allowing people to be their authentic selves? It's helping those who want to hold us back. It's helping those who are happy in the third dimension. And you will not be able to move into the fifth dimension if you cannot be your authentic self. So not only do you have to find who you are, but you have to fight to be that person. Or you just become that person and you ignore everybody else and you just live your authentic life. There are a lot of musicians and artists who are living their authentic lives. They, of course, don't have so many people working against them because music and art are accepted mediums, and they're actually encouraged to do these things. Now, so many people, especially like football players, basketball players, baseball players, gymnasts, they are encouraged to become this thing. They're encouraged to become the perfect and best baseball player, the perfect and best football player, perfect and best gymnast. And sadly, when they get older, they can't be perfect. They aren't as strong anymore. They, can't live up to their own and other people's expectations, and they wind up feeling worthless, not good enough, and they fall apart. Some of them fall so far apart that, drugs, alcohol, even some of them commit suicide because they can no longer be who they really wanted to be. They were pushed so hard to be what other people wanted them to be that they lost their true identities. And they become miserable people because they're no longer authentic. And it's so sad to see this happening. Actors and actresses and even producers, directors run into this same thing, that they have to get the perfect movie. They have to get the perfect, whatever. And when they fall short, they feel like a failure. And who determines if they fall short? Pretty much the general public or other people. It's not God, it's not yourself, it's other people. And when we have to rely on other people for our happiness, we're most definitely going to get hurt. We need to find ways to raise our children to be their authentic selves, to be happy just being them, not to have to make us happy or anybody else happy, to find ways for them to survive in this world just being themselves. I have spoken to a few young people between the ages of 10 and 15, and they talk about how stressed they are. And I believe it. I fully believe it. I see it. And they're stressed because they're being pushed and forced and coerced, and some of them, especially if they're young white people, being told how racist they are and how bad they are and how they have done terrible things to black people when they themselves have never done a thing to black people. In fact, their best friend is probably a black person. And yet it's at school. They are told how bad they are because of what they've done, and they've done nothing. So God and the angels want us to try to make sense of all of this, to realize what is true and what are lies, and to realize that you need to be your authentic self. You need to be happy. You need to be strong in your own skin and do what speaks to you. No matter what other people say to you or say about you, be strong and do your thing. And don't let other people pull you or push you or cut you down or tell you that you're worthless or you're stupid or don't let people hurt you, because hurt people hurt people. Those people are unhappy in their own lives, and they're striking out at others, and they think that because you are different, you're easy to strike out at. And God says, don't let them do that. Don't own it. Don't let them hurt you, because you're more than that. You're a lot more than that. And this is one reason why so many people are going to tiny houses nowadays. They can find small amounts of money, anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000, and buy themselves a house and move it to wherever they want or need it to be. A lot of people are living in campers, some people even living in their vehicles. And it's becoming more and more common for people to do this. And it's because they are wanting to be their authentic selves. They want to live in nature. They don't want to be pushed. They don't want to be pulled. They're tired of living up to everybody else's expectations. And, that this is not going to go away. There's more and more people who are doing this, and more people are going to continue to do this. And it's God speaking to them. So more power to you, people. And I hope that more people will listen to this and become their authentic selves and trust what your soul is telling you. Become the person you truly need to become. Blessings, love, light. Namaste. Have a wonderful day, people.